morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Yay. I just flew in from St. Louis last night, and I'm traveling so much that I'm getting really good at it. I found that I can sleep through takeoffs now. I can sleep through landings now, and I can sleep through the person bringing the cart up and down the aisle now. So I don't know if that's a good thing or it's a sign of exhaustion. But I was in St. Louis with my dear friend Mary Jean DeRusha as they celebrated her 30 years in ministry and her 10-year anniversary of being at the St. Louis Center. And Mary Jean and I have been friends for a long time, and even compared to me, she is outrageous. And after the banquet and the dignitaries, I was a dignitary. I guess now that I'm a doctor, I was a dignitary. And we did our presentations and all of that. They passed the microphone around through the room. And people had an opportunity just to stand up and give very brief personal testimonies about how much they loved Mary Jean and how much they had, changed since she came into their life. And one person gave a story about the first time that they came into the St. Louis Center was on a Wednesday night, and Mary Jean was sharing in her own Mary Jean way, and she told a joke. And the joke was that it was January, and two women had gone to communion. And the priest said, well, I know that it's January, and a lot of you have made New Year's resolutions to get fit and to lose weight and to change your eating. And so in honor of that, I purchased low-calorie communion wafers. And so the priest gave communion and gave the communion wafer to the two women. And one woman looked to the other and said, I can't believe this is low-calorie. And the other one said, I can't believe it's not Jesus. Just let us get a different perspective a little bit. So we are on day 5 of the season for intentional peace. Boy, I love that carol. That can go out in all the Facebook posts. The season for intentional peace, and today is about planting seeds. And so we are planting seeds of either plants or we are planting seeds of ideas. And I was thinking of that, planting seeds of ideas. What is a seed of an idea? We usually look at an idea being a seed. But really, by the time we've thought a thought, we're at an effect and not a cause. And this is going to be a little bit wooey-wooey metaphysics, so stay with me. But thought is not cause. I know we say change your thinking, change your life, change the world. And the way that we change our thinking is to change our thoughts. But what is it that changes the thought that we think? Who is it in us that is actually choosing which thought to think so that we can think a new thought? Well, my gosh, by the time we actually have thought the thought, there's been a whole process that's happened. And so what happens in the beginning before we think a thought, before we have an idea? I know sometimes we look around and we go, I have a great idea. I could have had a V8. I could have had a great life. I have a great idea. Where did that come from? Because some of us are just waiting to have that great idea. Some of us are just waiting until the divine guidance, the inspiration hits us on the head and we don't have to go through anything. I noticed that you didn't lose your faith. I noticed that you didn't give up. You waited for the divine guidance to happen. Most people react. When something happens, they react and they go and do the same thing that they've done 100 times and wonder where that great idea is, where the epiphany is, where the change is. So I want to talk about what we can do to create an atmosphere, a mental atmosphere that allows us to have the ideas that we want to have. And ideas are really important. Ernest Holmes says, It is necessary that we remember that we live in two worlds at the same time. The invisible world of cause, where thoughts and ideas are the creators, and the material world of effect, where the results or manifestations of our thoughts and ideas come into being. So what we want to do is we want to have thoughts and ideas that we want to have come into being. And sometimes we have thoughts and ideas that we don't want to have come into being, but we keep thinking them and getting those ideas anyway. What seeds an idea? And this is a wonderful time of year because this is the time of year, it was in the 70s last week. This is the time of year where, for me, being a gardener at heart, I start to yearn for that warmth. I start to yearn to get my fingers in the soil. I start to yearn for the taste of ripe tomatoes. Yeah. And even though it may be snowing outside, there's that part of me that says, oh, it's January. It's time to start thinking about what I'm going to plant when it's warm enough to plant. And my gardening has gone from a 1-acre garden out in Fairview to a couple of pots on my balcony, but still, I feel this very large need to plant something. And I remember when I was doing the 1-acre garden, one of the things that I loved was to get seed catalogs. Anybody ever see a seed catalog? Well, if you're not a gardener, they mean nothing. It's just a bunch of plants. But if you're a gardener, they're filled with all of these ideas about something new. Whether it's the burpee seed catalog that says there's a new hybrid that can give you a giant tomato in only 3 days, and it's multicolored. Or whether it's an heirloom seed catalog that says we've brought back this, what was one of my favorites, Radiator Charlie's Mortgage Buster tomatoes. We've brought back this heirloom variety, and you can have it if you choose to order it and to plant it. And what that does is that gives us a new idea of what we can have, because I didn't even know there was such a tomato, and probably you didn't either until a moment ago, that was called Radiator Charlie's Mortgage Buster. It was a tomato that Radiator Charlie sold on his way at the top of the hill when people's radiators would break and they would have to go and get their radiators fixed. Well, he went into the tomato business and sold so many tomatoes that it busted his mortgage. Paid off his mortgage of his radiator business. True story. You didn't even know that that existed until you got a new idea. Until the seed catalog planted the seed of the idea that allowed you to do something different. And so I'm wondering, what can we do in our mental atmosphere to create something that will give us a new idea? You know, there are people who respond to the same circumstance with completely different ideas. Some people look at a relationship that has gone separate ways, by whatever name you give it, and their idea is, wow, finally, I can go do what I want to do. And somebody else takes that same circumstance and they go, their idea is, oh no, now I'll never be in a relationship again. Now you can see why those two people went separate ways. Some people look at the completion of an employment circumstance as, okay, now I can do what I've always wanted to do. And the other person says, now I'll never have another job. Those are belief systems about the way life works that end up being an idea. Now the idea sets the law in motion, the thought of the idea sets the law in motion to where you are manifesting the outpicturing of that thought and idea. So what we want to do is we want to develop something inside of ourselves that says, what's going on that idea is triggered off? Have you ever gotten an idea over and over again? Like, I think I'll beat my head against the wall. I have an idea. I think I'll walk down this dark alley even though it feels wrong. I have an idea. I think I'll marry this person. I have an idea. I think I'll invest in this. Have you ever had ideas that you don't want to do anymore? Well, to not have that idea come up, there has to be something that's feeding it that shifts. So one thing that we do is we look at our belief system, our beliefs about how life is, because the way that we see life as being, and belief is a very strong word, belief leaves no doubt. The world is a safe place, or the world is not a safe place. No doubt, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's either this way or it isn't when you believe that. Do you believe that you are supported, the universe is on your side, that life is lifting you up, or do you believe that every time you awaken in the morning, life is out to get you? Whatever belief we hold about the universe, about life, about ourselves, about whatever God is, that's going to create the environment that we can get an idea that we think is such a good idea at the time. And then it out pictures and manifests and we go, what was I thinking? What in the world was that about? Well, that was about our belief. So what kind of beliefs do we hold about life? If we hold a belief that says, I'm not supposed to be stressed. I'm so weak and frail that I just can't handle any more. And if life gives me any more, I'm just going to fall apart. If we have a belief like that, then we're either going to live such a passive life that literally we just dig a hole and bury our head, and that's what we call our life. Or if anything happens, if there's any bump in a road, we're gonna just fall apart. And rather than rise to that occasion, we will just call it quits, run away, take the easy way out, which is to run back into our past and just keep reliving old circumstances over and over again. And I love this because it keys into the idea of seeds. Did you see what came out of my finger? Oh my gosh. This is by Florida Scott Maxwell. Life does not accommodate you. It shatters you. Oh, Barbara, you're supposed to teach me that I can have whatever I want, do whatever I want to do, go where I want to go, buy what I want to buy, be who I want to be. I am. But don't think that it's going to show up in such a way that life is always petting you. In order to change your life, you have to change yourself. And in order for something to be birthed anew within you, guess what? You're going to have to let go of the old. Life does not accommodate you. It shatters you. Every seed destroys its container, or else there would be no fruit. Are we willing to be shattered? Are we willing to know that there is something within us that is so strong and so powerful that the outer coating of our life does not define us, but is simply there to hold everything together until we are willing to come out? And that if we let go of that outer coating, something great and wonderful will emerge? I think so. I'm willing to be shattered. I'm willing to have my beliefs about who I think I am be completely gone so that I can be who I was meant to be. I have to let go of my idea that I'm separate in order to let my life be that connected, powerful experience. If I hold on to the little story of who Barbara Waterhouse is, I'll never experience the greatness that I am meant to be. Those of you who were at my doctoral presentation heard the story. You know, the story about being the princess, and I've added to that story the ideas of not enough food, not enough time, not enough love, not enough support. I would have been grateful for food stamps when I was a kid. You know, the story that says the child that I used to be had no business growing up to be the woman that I am today, and so I had to let go of that child. I had to let go of that story. I had to let go of those circumstances, and I had to risk there not being anything there. If we have a belief that there's nothing inside of us, that there's really not anything going on, then we won't have the ideas of greatness. If we have a belief that says the outer does not define the inner defines the outer, and the outer may be in flux, but that only means that there's something better coming up through the inner, then we can let go. and we create a new mental atmosphere to where we get great ideas rather than stay here and cry. Why don't I go outside and do something? Rather than stay here and be broke and miserable, why don't I risk creating something and go for what I want in life? Rather than be in something that's not fulfilling, why don't I create fulfillment either exactly where I am, or if I need to leave and go do it somewhere else, that I'm willing to go and do it somewhere else? How many of you have ever moved? Why do you move? Why aren't you living in the same place that you were born? Because there's something better. And moving is not that easy. You've got to go through stuff, decide what you're going to keep, decide what you're going to let go of. You've got to put things in boxes and carry them with you. You've got to look around and find where you're going to move to. Many of us have decided we are going to move across the country to Asheville, North Carolina. And we're going to bring our lives somewhere new, even though we risk there not being what we thought there would be or not knowing what's going to be here. Life is filled with risk. But if we believe that there's something within us that will carry us through that risk and bring us to something on the other side, and even if it doesn't, that it's worth the risk and it's worth the price not to stay a seed, then we can let go and be shattered and allow that glory and that magnificence of spirit to come through us. What kind of a belief system do you have? Do you have a belief system that says there are winners and losers? There's not enough to go around? One of my favorite authors is Wallace Wattles. And he talks in The Science of Getting Rich, which caught me as soon as I read that topic. I said, yes, I want to know the science of getting rich. He talks about richness as including but not limited to money. And that a lot of people can have money and not be rich. But if that you follow these ideas in The Science of Getting Rich, you will be rich. And that money will be a part of that, but not all of it. And what he says is that in order for you to be rich, you have to move from the competitive plane to creative mind. From the competitive to the creative. The competitive says there's not enough to go around, so if I'm going to have mine, I've got to take it away from you. The creative says, I am creating my experience, and I am going to choose what I want to manifest in my life. He talks about those two realms being the competitive plane, being that one person gets rich at the expense of everyone else, cutting off all means that anyone following them has of achieving what they have achieved. Whereas on the creative plane and creative mind, the person gets rich and throws down ladders so that other people can climb up with them. Wow, what a different world. One says there's a line in the sand, and if you cross it, I will bomb you. And the other one says there's plenty for all. Each one having an idea that they thought was a good idea. There's not enough to go around, so I'm going to have a line in the sand, and if you cross it, I will bomb you. Seemed like a good idea at the time. There are people who sat around and said, I think this is a good idea, because of their belief system, that there's not enough. Whereas on the other hand, if you're living in the creative world, in creative mind, on the creative plane, and you not only want to lift yourself up, but you want to lift everyone else up with you, then you have an idea that says, oh, I have a great idea. Why don't we share our wealth? Why don't we lift up what are called the rising billions, so that we all have plenty, so that we all can have enough, so that our children are all taken care of? I think that's a great idea. Both sides equally thought their idea was a great idea. Which one do you want to live in? Which world do you want to pick? Because you will have ideas that you think are great ideas that are growing out of belief systems, and if you don't know what your belief system is, or if you don't take hold of it and shift it into what kind of a life you want to live, you won't know that these ideas maybe are not what you want to have. So what are your beliefs? How strong do you think you are? Another great author, Napoleon Hill, Said every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Wallace Wattles said if your prayer isn't answered, it's because you didn't ask big enough. That what you are asking isn't in alignment with who you are. That you need to move into a greater level of who you are and create that in your life, and then it will show up. What a different idea. Instead of, oh, you're just too big for your britches, you should be knocked down a step and you shouldn't ask for so much. No, ask for more. Say, I want a better life, I want greater good, I want more in my life. If you have a belief that says there's a power within you and that is supported by all of life, that anything that happens, you will get a good idea about that will lift you up. And not only will it lift you up, it will lift everybody else in the world up. It'll lift up your friends and your families. It'll lift up your acquaintances. It'll lift up your center. It'll lift up your city and your state and your country and your world. If you have a belief. Because it is the beliefs that we hold about who we are and how life works that seed the ideas that we get. It's totally up to you. Whatever it is you're going to plant, be very mindful of the soil that you put it in. Be very mindful of how you prepare that soil of your consciousness, of your beliefs, of your attitudes in life. And what you will find is that you get some of the most amazing ideas and some of the most amazing thoughts that then set universal mind and universal law in motion and show up as the most amazing life that you've ever seen. And so it is.